Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends guys, welcome back to r/PettyRevenge, where people get little revenges on those who've wronged them. And today's episode is absolutely hilarious guys. We've got people cutting in line, Facebook marketplace scammers, office thieves, nightmare landlords, and bad neighbors all getting taught lessons they won't forget. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Try not to laugh too hard at some of these. And as always, you can send or link your posts to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this was a few years ago. I had just pulled into my local gas station and all the pumps were in use. So I pulled up behind one of the pumps, waiting for the van using it to finish and move off. After quite a few minutes, the driver casually strolls out of the shop in no hurry, despite the long lineup behind him at the pump, and the guy walks off to his van. He could see that I and several other vehicles were waiting to use the pumps. The van driver in the pump next to him was obviously a friend. That driver finishes up, and the two of them just stand there and have a chat. They were aware of us waiting, and they were clearly loving the fact that they were holding us all up, even turning to laugh arrogantly at the guy waiting next to me, who called them to move away from the pumps. This went on for 5 minutes more until they got bored of their silly game, and they drove off. But here's the thing. This moron was a plasterer, and the guy had his name and phone number written all over his van, advertising his business. And oh boy, am I petty. So I made a note of his details. A few weeks later, I call him up and I said that I bought a house in need of renovation and that I need a quote to board out and skim the entire house. Hearing me wanting to have him do a whole house, the guy was happy to come down immediately to quote for such a big project, assuring me that he was great at his trade and I could not find a better quote anywhere. We discussed his availability, and the guy was excited to come and look at the job. I gave him the address of a rundown house a few streets away from me that had recently sold at an auction. The guy knew the property, as he had driven past it a few times and noticed it was up for auction. We arranged for him to come by the following day. Of course, I wasn't there. The guy called a few times and he left a voicemail checking where I was. Eventually I call him back, very apologetic, and I said that my husband had fallen off a ladder and I had to take him to emergency. The guy said, okay, let's rearrange the visit. We arrange another time a few days later. The next appointment comes and I had a few missed calls and 2 more messages from him, clearly annoyed that I wasn't there again. This is when I call him back again and apologized. I said that I could totally understand his anger and wasted time, that it reminded me of a time I was at a gas station a few weeks ago, and some idiot and his friend stood there having a chat while laughing at the drivers waiting to use the pumps. As soon as I said that, I heard the penny drop. That's when the guy loses it, like the guy was literally raging and swearing at me, which just set me off roaring with laughter. I made my point, and it was fabulous. I spent the next few weeks blocking various numbers, sending abusive texts, but he got bored of that eventually. I hope he learned that actions have consequences. Holy moly, what OP did was master level petty, guys. Like, absolutely brilliant. I just love the fact that as soon as OP brought up the gas station a few weeks back, it instantly clicked that he was getting played. And here's something to remember. If you're driving a company vehicle with a name and phone number of a business on it, it might be best to be well behaved while you're in public because you never know who will do what. And if you think that was a brilliant petty revenge, listen to how OP in this next one deals with a Facebook marketplace scammer. So here goes. When I list something on Facebook Marketplace, I do it with the intention of selling it basically right away. Now, what does this mean? It means that my price is low, sometimes too low, and firm. I don't budge on the price, but that's never mattered because they always buy it at full price anyway. That said, a few days ago, I was selling a new set of tires and wheels. MSRP was in the $2,500 range. Used prices were in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. I listed these at $1,000. Within an hour, I probably had 20 messages about them. My response is always the same. The price is the price. I will not hold them. First come, first serve. This is when one of the guys who messages me offers me $250. Now, these are a slow sell at $2,000, but a near instant sell at $1,000. There's no world where $250 was an appropriate offer. So I told him that. My word for word, punctuation for punctuation response to his offer was no, period. But that doesn't stop him. The guy then tries to justify his offer by sending several listings and showing other tires, etc. So I just block him and move on. Fast forward 10 minutes. I get another message from a different Facebook account with the same offer. This guy was now using a second Facebook account. So I blocked this second account. And then he does it with a third account, and then a fourth, and then a fifth, and by this time I was done. Clearly I can't win just by blocking and moving on. This guy was relentless. His strategy was to literally annoy the living crap out of you, get aggressive, until you just say yes to his crappy lowball offer. And blocking his accounts wouldn't work. Who knows how many accounts this guy had. And so I did what any other sane person would do. I accepted his $250 offer. I told him that I would take his $250 offer, but he would have to meet me later that night, as I was currently busy. He then says that he's about a 2-hour drive from me, and he asked to meet me halfway. That's when I said, no, you come pick them up or you don't get them. He was eager to make a quick buck off of me, so he agreed to drive to me. So that said, there's a street in our town that has a few pubs on it. 3 of these pubs are within about half a mile of each other. It's kind of set up, so you park on the street and walk between them. And these pubs are usually busy by 11 p.m. And by busy, I mean there's zero parking anywhere. You usually have to park half a mile away and walk to the pub. So my petty revenge is I set the meet for 11 p.m. at one of these local pubs. And you probably know where this is going. From the comfort of my own home, I send him a message at around 10:45 p.m. and I ask him to meet me in the pub. We could then walk over to my truck to grab the tires and wheels. The guy messages me at 11 p.m. and he tells me he's out front. And here's the thing. There is no way to park out front without blocking the entire street, and traffic's usually heavy at 11 p.m., meaning he couldn't just wait out front, he would have to move. So again, I did what any sane person would do. I wait about 10 minutes after 11 p.m. to message back. In that 10 minutes, I received no less than 20 messages from him. These messages paint an amazing picture. As the guy grows more and more frustrated, he sends screenshots of his location, asking if he's in the right place. And he kept telling me that he would drive down the block and circle back. You get the point. 10 minutes later, I send a simple, "I'm sorry about that, I didn't see your message. I'm at the bar in XYZ pub. Just park and come inside. I'll grab you a beer." The guy accepts the offer. He parked what I assume was half a mile away and then walked to the pub. 10 more minutes of me not responding and 20 more messages later, I sent a simple, "I'm sorry about that. I didn't see your message. I walked down to PDQ pub. I thought you might be there, so meet me down here." Fast forward until right around midnight. I had made this man drive 2 hours one way, walk at least 2 miles, go into 3 pubs, and curse me every way to Sunday. And the guy was still 2 hours from home. So I did what any sane person would do. I then turned off Facebook notifications and then went to bed. Oh, and the wheels and tires had sold earlier that day for exactly $1,000. Again, the lengths that some people will go to teach somebody a lesson. Like, I can't even begin to imagine the rage that dude felt, knowing that he just wasted his whole night wandering busy streets for absolutely nothing. I just wish OP sent one final message before blocking the dude saying, "Oh shoot, you'll never guess what happened. I was talking to the bartender, and the guy agreed to give me $1,200 for the tires. I'm so sorry." If anyone here has traveled from Galveston, Texas to Crystal Beach, Texas, you know it's a nightmare. You have to take a ferry where you wait in line for 2 to 4 hours, depending on how much traffic there is. Then you drive onto the ferry, sail across the bay, and drive off the ferry. The line for the ferry forms on a 2-lane road. The idea being one line is for the ferry and the other is for locals to get around. However, it's all too common for people to skip 100% of the line and cut in at the last second, despite there being tons of signs that say no line cutting. There is also police driving around ticketing people who do line cut. So on to the story. There I am, being a dutiful citizen and waiting in line for the ferry. Way far into hour 3 of the wait, I'm almost to the gate when this D-bag comes flying in and he cuts me off. Of course, I start flashing my lights and honking, trying to alert the police around. But I get nothing, and the guy has the audacity to flip me off, laugh at me, and then settle into line. 10 minutes later, we're on the boat, and we're the last 2 cars in line, side by side on the back of the boat. The ride across the bay takes about 20 minutes, so it's common for people to mill around the boat as there's restrooms and sitting areas. That's when the D-bag gets out and he gives me a grin and he gestures like "F you, I made it" to me. He then goes inside the boat's superstructure towards the bathroom. Now, I can't help but notice that Mr. Turd has been gone for a while, and I have a bag of pretzels in the front seat. So that's when I grab the bag of pretzels and walk to the back of the boat, where they allow you to feed the seagulls. I then proceed to make it rain with pretzels, until there's probably a good 40 to 50 seagulls captivated by the bag of pretzels. Now mind you, we're both parked right by the back of the boat, so I make sure that I conduct my feeding activities squarely behind his car and away from mine. In short order, my flock of seagull friends do what they do best, cover his SUV in gigantic seagull crap. You know, the nice big, impossibly white and runny ones. I even threw a bunch of pretzels on top of his SUV to make sure they spent a lot of time crawling all over that vehicle. Right after I do this, I see the peninsula coming up fast. We'll be there in maybe 5 minutes. I start walking back with about a quarter of a bag of pretzels left, and that's when I realize that Mr. D-Bag has left his front windows open. Now, this opportunity is way too good, so I pitch the bag of pretzels into the second row of his seats and then climb back in my car. Sure enough, as soon as I'm in my car, the seagulls bombard the guy's SUV. By the time he came waddling out was when they sounded the arrival horn. There were probably 15 seagulls thrashing around on top and inside of his car, fighting over the bag of pretzels. The outside of his car was covered in seagull crap. The guy starts freaking out, yelling at the birds, and engaged in a losing battle to get them out of his car. He never even looked back at me, and I don't know if he ever put 2 and 2 together, but holy crap did he get angry. He was screaming and swearing at the birds, and by the time we docked and I drove off, the guy had just finished getting the birds out of his car, and he was scrubbing seagull crap off his dash and driver's seat with his t-shirt. Rot in hell, line cutter. You know what? The guy totally deserved it. Like, he flipped OP the bird, so it's only fair that OP returned the favor by getting a whole flock of birds to ruin him. And what a revenge that was, weaponizing those creatures. Like, the bird poop all over the guy's SUV was already satisfying, right? But when I read that OP took it to the next level and he tossed a bag of pretzels into the guy's car, the satisfaction meter literally exploded, guys, like off the charts. I work in an office, as do most people, and of course, there's one of many break rooms, as found in most offices. For the past 2 weeks, my wonderful girlfriend would slow cook awesome meals for me to take to work with me. We have a giant twin-door refrigerator in the break room where everyone keeps their food, no surprise. Well, like a kid going to recess, I walk towards the break room and open the fridge. My food is missing. I scan around the break room to see that my plastic food container is on the counter next to the sink. My heart sank, and I reluctantly drove in lunchtime rush hour to the quick taco restaurant. The next day, I bring my food to work, and I keep checking the break room to see if my food's still in there. This time at lunch, my food was in the fridge. I felt sort of relieved, and I thought that was an isolated incident. Until the next day, when I brought in some chicken tenders from Publix. I go into the fridge, and it's gone. I look in the trash can, and there's my chicken tenders container. I was so mad at this point that I talked with security to see if they could play back the footage. Since it was more of a nuisance than a crime, security just laughs and says, "Sucks to be you, man, all we can say." This occurs over the course of the next 2 work weeks. At least I accumulated enough stamps for a free taco at the Quick Taco restaurant. Over the weekend, while fishing on the beach, I couldn't help but think about this jerk stealing my food. And then it hits me. I want to play a game. So on Sunday, I purchased a 6-inch chicken tender sandwich from Publix, and I took it home. A little bit about me is I'm a chili head. Basically, I love my food extra spicy. I've built up a tolerance to where Tabasco's like table salt for me now. I mainly enjoy Carolina Reaper hot sauces. At home, I open up my medicine cabinet full of hot sauces. I carefully opened the sandwich and then picked my blood. I needed something slow acting since I didn't want just one bite and him thinking, "Hey, that's spicy." I wanted this to build and then knock him down. So I pick one sauce containing the Moruga Scorpion chili peppers. At one time, this was considered one of the hottest peppers in the world by Guinness Book. The sauce is a great sauce. It slowly builds up with a nice peppery flavor, almost like a Chipotle Tabasco, if you multiply it by like 1,000. I used a lot of it, but it was worth it. But I wasn't done. No. I then take out some dried Reaper and Ghost chilies from the fridge, which I use for chili and jarring pickles. I cut them up into fine pieces using latex gloves, eye goggles, and a mask. I then sprinkle them onto the sandwich. I woke up the next morning and I took the sandwich with me. I was about to get revenge. I took extra care to place the sub right at the front of the fridge. I kept checking the break room every so often to see if it's gone or still there. Finally, at around 10:50, I head toward the break room and I hear heavy breathing, like a dog panting loudly, and I can also hear the sounds of shoes squeaking, almost like somebody was playing basketball. I then go in and see Ruben, let's call him that, sweating heavily. The guy stumbling down the counter, breathing up a hurricane. He resembled a fish out of water on a hot sidewalk. I point towards him, and that's when I say, You're the mother effer stealing my damn lunch." The guy just looks towards me, and he says, "Water, I need water, please." Hearing that, I was more than happy to bring him water, because any chili head would tell you that water only intensifies the burn. The guy gulps down all the water and then he hangs his head over the sink with a stream of drool leaving his mouth. And this is when the best thing happens. The chicken tender sandwich comes right up and it lands on the break room floor. Someone comes into the break room and they think he's choking. And that's when I say, no, he's not choking, he's drunk. At this point, he's literally at a loss for words. I then go back to my desk and he comes up to me in a sweat-stained shirt and he starts cussing me out. The only thing I said was, "Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have kept stealing my lunch. This wouldn't have happened." He then tries to get me in trouble with my supervisor. The guy tells my supervisor that I tried to poison him. I explained the situation to my supervisor, who didn't necessarily agree with my actions, but I could tell that a piece of him thought that it was justified. I felt satisfied and relieved. I didn't even mind going to that quick taco restaurant to buy food later. When the workday was done, I went to the beach, cracked open a cold one, and sipped to victory. And what a victory that was. And guys, I just don't get it. Like, why do people eat food that doesn't belong to them? It's ridiculous. Like, it should be common sense, right? If you didn't bring something to work to eat, don't raid the fridge at lunch and eat someone else's food. Because in this case, you never know what someone's brought or what they put in their food. Thankfully, OP didn't get reprimanded, but then again, it could always be disputed by OP taking a bite of that sandwich, saying it's not hot for him, and that nobody at work should have been eating that sandwich. So this happened a couple of years ago when my wife and I were moving out of our previous apartment. So moving day comes and the landlord shows up and we walk through the whole apartment with him to hand it over. Even though he has some minor complaints, in the end, he agrees to refund the deposit in full and we part on good terms. Well, a couple of days pass and we get this long, angry voicemail claiming that he was renovating and he noticed that the room that was my former office smells extremely bad, claiming that our cats must have urinated in there repeatedly and that we would need to come back and renovate the room ourselves. I of course told him that we made sure the cats never peed there, but his response was threatening us. He then said that he was going to get a health inspector, lawyers, contractors, etc. all on our dime to fix it. And he means tearing down the wallpapers, replacing the whole wood flooring, painting the walls, etc. At this, my wife and I are dumbfounded, but since we do have cats and you never know, we don't dismiss it outright. But we realize that this is basically impossible, as I used to use the room every day, and we had the apartment professionally cleaned before handing it back. There's no way that what he's describing was there when we left. We actually thought that maybe it was a raccoon that got in during the days the apartment was empty or whatever, but it wasn't our fault either way. So we call him to let him know that we won't cover it. And that's when he gets really nasty, making all kinds of claims about the state of the apartment and how he would make sure that we pay for all of this. After 10 minutes of back and forth, I just hang up on him. Expecting a massive bill to arrive at any point after this left us anxious, and it really started to mess with our heads during this time. And of course, we don't get our deposit back neither. Now, because of this whole ordeal, and seeing my wife being worried about this all the time, I start to become really angry, and I dive a little deeper into our options. That's when I discover that where we live, if a landlord doesn't formally claim a reason for holding back a deposit within 6 months at the end of the lease, they are required by law to refund it. So I figure that revenge is a dish best served cold, and we need to wait it out for another 3 months or so, and then after that, it's our turn. I calculate the exact date when the 6 months have passed, and 1 day later, I message him to please refund the deposit within 2 weeks. He replies, "Yeah, sure, buddy." So we wait, and no money comes. Then we send a formal letter setting a second deadline. Again, nothing happens. So we hire this attorney and let her collect the money on our behalf. At this point, the landlord starts claiming all kinds of ridiculous damages, which would let him keep the deposit, which the attorney simply dismisses as the time for claims has passed. And then, for some reason, he pays only 80% of the amount due, so the attorney has to get at it again to get the full amount. Apparently, this guy's not realizing that all of this is incurring hourly costs for the attorney, which he also has to pay, as he's legally liable to refund. So in the end, he pays the full deposit, interest, and a massive bill for our lawyer, far higher than the deposit. Needless to say, we're very happy with the outcome. Once everything is settled, my wife and I just sat in our new home's garden. We had a glass of wine and we burned the old rental agreement while planning how to spend the deposit money. You know what they say, play dumb games, win dumb prizes. And what's worse than a shady landlord who's trying to scam money out of their tenants is a dumb, shady landlord. And honestly, that guy's really lucky because I've read a few stories where depending on what state you live in, landlords would be required to pay 3 times the unrefunded deposit. Opie and his wife could have really cleaned up. Okay, buckle up, kiddos, because this is a long and exciting ride. When this took place, the year was 2006. I was a young, dumb girl who had gone and gotten myself married to somebody completely wrong for me. The guy refused to work, and as a result of financial difficulties of both of us being in school and only me working, we found us living with his mom. And let me tell you, that's every newlywed's dream. Over the course of us living with her, anytime I would buy myself food or a treat, my mother-in-law would eat it. It didn't matter what it was or where I hid it, that woman was a bloodhound for sniffing out things that I bought just for me. The final straw was one night we had gone out to dinner at the Cheesecake Factory. I had taken my slice to go and put it in the fridge. I was gonna have it after work the next day. Well, next day at work is absolute crap. And the only thing getting me through my shift is the slice of cheesecake I know is in my fridge. I go home, pop the lid off the container, and it doesn't look right. Like there's effing fork marks all around the outside perimeter of my cheesecake. Like the woman thought that she could just sneak some off all around and I wouldn't notice. I of course was pissed, so I went and handed it to her and I told her she might as well eat the rest of it. Fast forward a few days, and I'm at the pet store picking up some dog food. I'm just standing in line, waiting to check out, and they have these little boxes of dog treats that look like the little red boxes of animal crackers that you can buy for little kids. Now, it very clearly says on the front, circus animals for dogs. About this time, I've got a little devil sitting on my shoulder, whispering in my ear, "Do it." And then the angel pops up on my other shoulder, and it screams, "Effing do it." So the crackers magically end up with the stuff I'm buying. I drive home and leave everything in a bag all together on the kitchen counter. Several hours later, she comes into my room and she says, "Hey, I think there was something wrong with those animal crackers. They were the most awful ones I've ever eaten. I had to eat a whole thing of frosting with them just to finish them." All I said in reply was, "Huh," and then shrugged my shoulders. You know she's a nasty woman when, right? "Oh, these are so gross, but I'll still eat the whole box that OP bought, but use a whole tub of frosting, like the audacity." And seriously, I don't know how OP did it, not telling her at that very moment. Like, it would have been so hard for me to hold back saying, "Ha, you dummy, you mean the dog treats on the table? You are so freaking dumb. You know how you talk to your mother-in-law?" I'm kidding, guys. And this person leaves an absolute savage comment. This person says, "Act like a bitch, eat like a bitch." Let me know if you agree or disagree. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/PettyRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you didn't chuckle too hard. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where a Karen makes a huge mistake by attacking OP over a parking spot. And then she cries about a 30-year prison sentence. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.